What's up, guys, and welcome back to Gabe Miller Music. I have been a hardcore Roland MC-101 user for quite a while now, so when I saw the spec sheet for this and kind of its approach, I knew I had to give it a go. This was sent over courtesy of Zounds on loan, so thank you so much to them for hooking me up with this. Today's video is going to be all about giving you my first impressions on this. I'm going to do a super brief unboxing and then hopefully give you the experience of using this thing for the first time and discovering how this thing works, but minus all the boring bits. For context, for those of you unfamiliar, the MC-101 and the MC-707 were Roland really getting back into the standalone music production station, aka Groovebox world, and then this is kind of the middle child. Its price is right in between the two devices. It adds more tracks and more features and has a more DAW-in-a-box approach rather than a live performance approach that the 101 and the 707 had. So, with all that introduction out of the way, let's jump into it. This is an incredibly exciting time to be someone working in the Groovebox niche here on YouTube. For context, for those of you who are new to the channel, I've been a huge user of the Roland MC-101, and this is kind of the step between the MC-101 and the MC-707, the Roland Verselab MV-1. Gonna unbox this, try to apply my Roland MC-101 background knowledge to learning this thing and hopefully making some music from scratch. So, I've already cut the little sticky tabs over here. Very good. File that away for later. A lot of protection. Like, this is a pretty friggin' big box. Okay, so we got some cable stuff in here. I'm not gonna just chuck this one aside carelessly. Ooh, look at this thing. This is way prettier than I thought it would be. Here's a quick look at all the ins and outs. I will most likely get into that soon enough here. Headphones with two different size jacks? Roland is thinking ahead with this. And then of course your built-in mic, which I probably won't be using unless for some sample gathering. And then the pads, the step sequencer and all that kind of stuff. So let me get the box out of my way here and turn this thing on. It's quite a bit smaller than what came in the box, but I appreciate how much protection they put in here. I guess I should open this on camera as well. So as far as I know, you can also bus power this via USB. All right, so turning this on, that is probably going to take a second to load, and it's probably going to be a demo song that I'm just going to very quickly ignore. I want to start something from scratch. So project is up here. Got their shift commands labeled, super nice. You're gonna spend a lot of time turning this value knob, I can already tell. Because a lot of this I think is gonna translate from the 101. Building up a song, like arranging it, however, that's gonna be a different beast. And I will try to get into that near the end of this video. This is the default sample. The pads are velocity sensitive. And then step sequencer. Very nice to have. And then I imagine, excellent. So if you hold down a step, you can assign it to a specific pad. That's reminding me a lot of the circuit. And this is something that the MC-101 is just too damn small to do. So let me get a click going. Tempo's over here. Let's get up to 100. Count-in is on by default. That's nice. Metronome on. 1, 2, 3. Super basic track. Notice that they have these selected for you. As far as I know, you can basically just ignore this. So what's kit? Oh, here we go. This is what I was hoping this would be like. We're gonna have a bunch of stuff living on one track. And notice how the screen changes with each pad selected. I'm a fan of that. And also, let me go to the mixer. I want to select the kick track and then turn that up. So that's an interesting case where this actually becomes just ever so slightly less hands-on than the 101, because the 101 has those physical faders. But this is actually a trade-off I'm perfectly okay with, because you can still mute and unmute tracks. I think you hold down mixer. Yeah. How do you page through these? Oh, here we go. Ooh. So that's just all in there within fairly easy reach. I know people like to give Roland a hard time for their love of tiny screens. This is a very good use of a tiny screen. There's not really much menu diving here. Roland has gotten much better with the MC-101. I think they got to test this out and find ways to make the workflow smoother and more immediate. And they've translated a lot of this and then I think even improved it here. I'm an MC-101 fanboy, and so that's the experience I'm bringing where I love the device for its power and its workflow and its size. And so I am seeing this as like an evolution of that with de-emphasis on performance, emphasis on building up a whole track. We'll see how that part holds up, but let me just try to build up something super basic here. So let's send this on every step. Let's do a cowbell. Why not? So let's say I want to change this out. So I have not loaded on any WAV files yet. That will be coming very quickly. So how do you audition these? Okay, right on the thing. So then what about parameters? Because I'd love to like shorten this. Here we go. Here's all the nitty gritty parameters. That is a little menu divey. I am not the most pleased with that. Good enough for now. This guy could stand to be a little quieter relative to everything on the specific track. Okay. There we go. Good. Let me save this. You can only have one project loaded at a time, but you can have a ton living on the SD card that you can just switch between whenever you want. I wanted to see about like some hi-hat rolls. Okay, so I want this to be a hi-hat roll right here. Style. Oh! Oh, so you have to record it in. So I've got a basic drum pattern. Cycle through a few presets here. Yeah, I'm recognizing these from the 101. Ooh, little warble? Nice. Let me go into chord mode here. That cowbell is so hilariously out of place. I'm about to change that in a second here. Let me figure out how to get this pattern to be longer. Okay, so for changing clip length, I'm wondering if, so here's section. What happens if I choose this clip? And this plays what's in that section. Cool. Not what I'm looking for. Track level. Oh, so that's a quicker way to change the parameters of that instrument. That's good to know. Still not quite what I'm looking for. Oh. Okay, so change the step length. Here we go. That took me long enough to find. There are still going to be some button press combinations. I took a quick peruse through the manual to like find this. And there's, okay, let me also try this. Yep, it'll still skip by a useful amount if you hold down shift and then turn the volume knob. Go back to style. That's how I get to the arpeggiator. I want chords. Turn this down a little bit. Let me cut some lows. May as well, while I'm here. I want my limiter on so I can mix through it. That is significantly louder. Okay, so that's cool. So yeah, shift to mastering gets us to all that kind of stuff. One other thing I wanted to do real quick is to change the velocity of those last chords. They're a little quiet. So let me go back to sequence. You should, presumably, be able to edit that by hitting edit, selecting that. Good, because otherwise it will take off whatever's on here, which was really annoying to deal with. I had Ian cut all that stuff out because no one wants to see me just struggle. Edit. See, that one's full velocity. Let's get that down to 70 as well, just so it's all hitting roughly the same. So here's what I'm gonna do. I kind of committed to that little octave up kick. I'm gonna get rid of it so I can actually put in a little 808 track. So here's the thing. I need to figure out how to change the scale here. That's about to be kind of vital to get this to sound half decent, because I believe this is chromatic, which is kind of counterintuitive to play on pads. So I will be right back. Let me check the manual. Okay, so this is an interesting thing that I'm noticing. The edit button is basically a second shift button. Here we go. Key, scale. Let's change that. Maybe next up, I could try to get an arpeggiator in here. So let me change out this patch. Style. What's up with this pattern? Let's try to figure out how to change that. Oh yeah, we got all the settings you could possibly want. Oh, okay, this could be a game changer. That is a game changer. So you can have it be in chord and ARP mode at the same time. That's really nice. That is thinking ahead. That's working for me. All right, so I'm gonna end this session here. I'm filming this in the evening. I'm gonna come back to this tomorrow and continue this video. A few observations. First of all, I like the fact that a lot of this stuff is pretty clearly labeled, but there are still a ton of double button presses, just like on the MC-101. That's something I hoped that they would improve with this, but it's, I think, just kind of part of Roland's workflow. And I will say you can absolutely get used to it. I have like a weird uphill battle because I have to retrain my muscle memory to get used to this, but I think I'll definitely be able to get there in not a lot of time. Like I'm already getting there. I'll just have to like make sure I check the manual anytime I get stuck until I get used to it. Another thing I want to note, the track count of this is lovely, and it's a little bit deceiving because you might be led to think that you're just limited to what's set up here. That's absolutely not the case. You can like delete a track and then change it to be like a tone track or a kit track. The kit tracks really unlock this thing because I've got a bunch of drums all living on this one thing. So I've still got 2 tracks completely free. Like the vocal track I don't think is free. I think that's got to be taken up by things that aren't clips. But like I've still got 2 tracks left, and I believe I could just turn these into tone tracks at will, go from there. Having the mastering stuff in here is nice as well, and I'm going to mess with like samples and whatnot when I have a little more time as well. I like the build of this unit. It's quite solid and actually quite pretty. Like the pads have a bit of resistance, but they're pretty pleasant to play. Overall, so far, this is basically the experience that I was hoping for. A bigger, more DAW-in-a-box version of the MC-101, you know, with the Zen Core engine, with all the ability to manipulate samples, all that kind of stuff is all in here. We'll see how well the DAW-in-a-box aspect of this functions when it comes to building up a whole song in a little bit. But so far, based on my super quick impressions of just building up this little beat, I am tentatively impressed. And we are back. It is the next day. I spent a bit of time off camera trying to get my head around how clips and sections work. And if I have picked up the limited amount of information in the manual correctly, they're weird. And if anyone wants to offer a correction, please do so in the comment section down below and I will pin it. But here's what I've gathered. Unlike on the MC-101, clips are not like independent. They are tied to sections. Once again, I would love to be proven wrong here, but this is, as far as I can tell, how this works. So check this out. We've got our main section. That's all well and good. If I select another section, there's currently nothing in here. If I want to get to a clip basis, I go to the sequence window, hit section select, and I can switch between different clips. For instance, that's our kick pattern. So far, so good. If I select another clip, you would expect, based on how the MC-101 works, for like this clip to change, but the section to stay the same, and all the other clips be just assigned to that section. Not the case. Now there's nothing in here because none of those clips have been created. They're all blank. And if I copy this section, this second one is identical to this one. Let's go back to sequence, go back to the kick. It's created a brand new clip that is attached to that brand new section. That is very weird. But then, of course, what is nice is that I can like clear that kick, for instance. Now, that kick's cleared, but everything else remains. And for that matter, let me just change out a preset entirely. So let's go back into the section window. Okay. The trade-off here is that now with clips tied to sections, you can just change a parameter like the preset or whatnot without like affecting the original. So here's the original clip that we made last night. This is the second clip Well, this is the second section, sorry. And this contains duplicates of every clip from this section and then has the modified new clips with that changed preset on the ARP and a removed kick. And so now I could put in like a new kick pattern, for instance, on this clip. Because I'm just trying to get in some variation. Here's an interesting thing as well. Let me go to this kit. There's a rim shot on here. Let me go back to section select, clear that clip. There's a cowbell there now. So when I cleared that clip, it also cleared all of my sound parameters on here. So now I can like start this from scratch if I want to. Here's another interesting thing. If I do copy and then press this, it just doubled the length of the pattern. That's really nice. So if I do something basic that I want to have go through some little changes, I can totally do that now. Getting my head around that was definitely an uphill battle because I'm really used to being able to just take a clip and assign it to any song section. Not the case here, but maybe that's not a huge deal because for one thing, copying stuff is super easy. And for another thing, it makes it much easier to have different sections of a song with different parameters assigned to the tracks. Like the track could change everything about itself across different clips, and that's like set up to do this. That's nice. Of course, the other trade-off that I just thought of is that like if you want to change a parameter globally across the entire song, like let's say that I get really sick of this snare and want to change it out across the entire song, I'm not sure if I'd be able to do that globally. This is Gabe from the future. Quick correction. As it turns out, you can change the patch out on the entire song all at once, just for the entire track. To do that, you hit Edit, and then hit the track that you want to change. That takes you to like preset, wave file, all that kind of stuff. You can browse and change it, and it'll change it for the entire song all at once. If you want to change it on the clip basis, once again, you Edit, choose the clip, and you will scroll all the way to Tone Browser, and that'll change it on a clip-by-clip basis, so you can have the synth patch change itself out kind of across your song. One thing to note, though, as far as I can tell, I dug through the manual. The same does not apply for effects. So say you put a chorus on a synth patch and you want it to stay the same across the entire song, across multiple clips, you're going to have to do that manually. Like there's no way to edit multi-effects on a track. It's got to be on a clip-by-clip basis, which is really unfortunate. But if you plan ahead a bit, you should be able to make that work. And of course, if you've got an identical part, you can just copy it from clip to clip without obliterating the rest of that section. I want to try to add some effects now. This would sound nice with some kind of distortion or saturation. Clip edit menu, multi-effects. Switch on, type. Let's just take this way too far and just see how it sounds. So let's see if that carries over. It almost certainly won't. That's unfortunate. All right, I'm gonna YOLO it here. Okay, so here's how you make a sweeping change without ruining everything. I can make a change in one clip and go, actually, I want that change to apply to every part of the song. So what I can do is I can copy that clip over to replace a different clip that I know is contained within, say, section 2. And that does make that change. It's an extra step, but that's really not bad, and I am okay with it. And it's quite a bit later. I spent some time in that first session trying to figure out song mode, and I think the difference in the way that sections work on this kind of threw me a bit, and so I didn't really get anywhere. But as it turns out, working with them is super easy. So once again, this isn't a tutorial, but I want to give a super quick little demonstration of that. So go to song mode, hit record to start assigning stuff, and the step sequencer turns into kind of a home for different sections of the song over time. So I hit record, select my section, throw it in there, select another one, select the section that goes in there, that populates, so on and so forth. And then when building up a song, what I would do is get my main sections of the song like completely good to go, or as close to good to go as I can get them, and then duplicate them a bunch and then have different combinations of elements with stuff removed, so I can create like breakdowns and intros and outros and all that kind of stuff. Then from there, I could just hit play on this and let it run through the entire timeline. It's literally that simple. I do like the way that Roland has set this up, and the weirdness with the sections makes at least a little more sense with this. I'd love to see that updated, but what are you going to do? After that session, I spent a bit more time with this device, made a more electronic-focused song from scratch, and I'm going to be doing an entire video on that, so be sure to subscribe so you don't miss it. With my second time around, I was going much more consciously for like making a proper full song, and I was able to do that quite quickly, and I had pretty much all the tracks that I could possibly have wanted. I played a bit more with the effects, and overall the workflow got a lot more intuitive. However, first of all, it's very easy to get confused between shift and edit, and that's just going to take some getting used to and some muscle memory being built up. There is an internal logic to it, but once again, sometimes it's a little hard to parse without having the manual in front of you at all times. I should also mention that once I had a full loop going and then had a bit of forethought going into how I partitioned out different sections for a full song, building up that full song, super easy.
Barely an inconvenience.
And I'm honestly pretty impressed at that. I am still not a fan of the changes in the way this thing handles clips. I really hope Roland can figure out a way to update that, and there's still a few little weird quirks and bugs in here that I think need to get worked out over time. Obviously, this thing sounds amazing because of the Zencore sound engine. It's nice to have more effects built into this and just more tracks. One other thing that I noticed that's a bit of a step back in terms of the way this is designed is that these drum tracks kind of force you to keep them as drum tracks even if you change them. And what I mean by that is, for instance, like the snare track, you can just change it, make it a synth track and go from there. However, if you go into style, it'll still want to do the ratchet thing rather than an ARP. And I could not for the life of me find a way to change that. And it looks like this being a drum track with ratchets rather than ARPs is just built into this, and there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. If you're not planning to use an ARP on one of these tracks, that's perfectly fine. That won't cause any problems. If you are, you will have to think ahead a little bit in terms of which section or which track type you put a tone track on. A few other things, as I mentioned before, I really don't mind the small screen. This is definitely a little controversial, and I like going against the grain when it comes to like minimalist display setups. Like, I love the lack of screen on an Ovation circuit. I do not mind the tiny screen on this. They've done a pretty good job of making the most of it, and it never really got in the way for me. And I have no desire to connect my phone to this or anything. Like, this is fine as it is, in my opinion. And I should touch on the vocal stuff. This is a feature that I have absolutely no plans to use personally because I am not a vocalist. You do not want to hear me attempt to be a vocalist. So people like me, like electronic music producers who typically make instrumental electronic music, might be a little bit alienated by the way Roland has marketed that aspect of it. With a name like Verselab and stuff, it definitely seems targeted at people who are both producers and vocalists. And I think that might be a bit of a mistake on Roland's part, because while that is a cool feature of this thing has a ton going for it without that. Like, this has the incredible sound engine, the really nice workflow between the pads and the step sequencer. It's got a ton of tools built in to shape your sound, and it's got quite a bit of capacity for layering, and then, of course, working in post. It's got a lot going for it just by itself, and so don't let the kind of vocalist positioning fool you. This is a really capable music production instrument for both hip-hop and electronic music producers, even if you're not a vocalist. You're not overspending for what you get if you don't choose to use the vocal features on this thing. However, the final thing I do want to mention is, will this be replacing my MC-101? No. I like the extra tracks on this thing, and I like the improved sequencing. I like some of the extra features. However, I can get a ton out of the MC-101, and this isn't necessarily a gigantic upgrade from that, and there are a few little interface decisions that seem like a bit of a step back. I'm going to get much more into that as I get to know this thing. I'll do a dedicated video comparing the two devices. So in the meantime, be sure to subscribe for more videos on this thing and other music production equipment, and if you'd like to check out some kind of related videos, you can click or tap up over here. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back with a new video in a little bit. You have no idea how unwieldy this is to film.